Greetings, my friends. I want to thank you all for subscribing. I want to thank all of my channel members for supporting me in this endeavor to save pop culture. And if you are not subscribed, please consider supporting this channel. We need you. Thank you. Greetings, my friends. I am Dictor Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, and let me tell you, here in my hidden base at the savage land at the center of the Earth, I've witnessed some appalling acts of barbaric violence on the part of marauding lizard men and magma men, but in all my years down here, I've never seen a public evisceration quite as bad as I witnessed at the Disney shareholders meeting yesterday. To say that Iger's performance during that call was disastrous is like calling the Hindenburg a schnitzel roast. Oh, the humanity!
Hey, as a fan of disasters, I have to say, it was like Christmas come early for me yesterday. This was biblical plague, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man level mayhem. The stuff that dreams are made of. Well, my dreams anyway. Yes, the accusations leveled at Iger's face of wokeness and grooming for the LGBTQIA MOUSE community were horrendous enough. But then they got into the whole Reedy Creek district fight, and according to some legal minds, Iger may have publicly confessed to corporate crimes in this debilitating Disney debacle. How delightful.
It was a terrible thing to behold, my friends, a truly terrible thing to behold. Normally, these kinds of investor or shareholder calls are meticulously stage-managed events, where any questions are filtered and pre-screened. Well, that was not the case this time around, my friends. Oh, no. Oh, these questions were to the point, savage questions that put Iger on the spot, in the hot seat, and to my eyes it appears he flinched and screwed the proverbial pooch in oh so many ways. The parade of pain started off when investor William Russell from New York posed a question for Iger. Quote, "I'd like to address what I view as the elephant in the room. Over the last few years, Disney has turned from a place of magic to children to an ideological company serving LGBTQIA+ lobbies to groom children." Unquote. Mr. Russell then affirmed the Disney programming is, quote, "increasingly promoting the woke agenda," unquote. He posed the question, quote, "How can you explain to parents worldwide that you recently celebrated 100 years of history by collaborating with the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus to produce an LGBTQIA+ themed Disney musical? This is a group who have explicitly stated that they want to indoctrinate children. They literally sang a concert and they sang the words, 'We will convert your children,' quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. Disney chose to collaborate with these predators to sing to children. How can you explain to parents worldwide that over the next few months, dozens of highly sexualized gay pride parades will take place in Disneyland parks worldwide, the exact places where they used to take their children for fun? Parents have simply had it up to here. Would it not be beneficial for the company to ditch the LGBTQIA+ and gender ideology for good? Turn Disney back to the apolitical fun place that it used to be, and I bet that you'll win back both the trust of families and the stock market." Unquote.
Holy hell! How the fuck did this kind of question make it past the screeners, who are probably unemployed today?
Maybe the investors were so angry, they lied to the screeners about what question they were really going to ask. However it happened, I have no idea. Iger was put on the spot in an unprecedented way during this call. Real questions on real people's minds were aired, and Iger floundered. Like a true politician, he failed to address the real questions and instead gave more or less two separate and somewhat contradictory answers, talking out both sides of his mouth. His first reply was, quote, "We've been telling stories for 100 years aimed at entertaining and inspiring families from all over the world. And we're extremely proud of the positive impact we've had on billions of people over that 100-year period of time. For generations, the stories that we've told have touched people's hearts because they've been infused with right values." Ah, well, Bob, Therein lies the crux of the problem here. In defending this not at all secret gay agenda inserted into Disney programming, Iger simply claims that Disney stories are infused with right values. But they're Disney's values, Mr. Iger. You're making those choices for America by default when you slip this kind of content into stories that are supposed to be family-friendly and worse, into Disney children's programming. Parents who aren't comfortable with their kids being exposed to this kind of LGBTQ plus content can no longer trust that Disney won't be slipping that stuff straight into their children's heads without their knowledge or permission, and that undermines a parent's right to guide their children's development. Rare is the parent who can be with their kids 24/7 in this hectic modern world. So basically, you have a whole segment of the population that has lost faith in Disney's ability to safely babysit their kids while they're busy taking care of siblings, of aging parents, of another job. Disney used to be a good default option for parents who could trust that Disney wasn't slipping subliminal gay content into their children's programming, and that's a huge problem, a massive problem. Once you lose the faith and trust of a large section of the public that is your target audience, you are in serious trouble. This investor in particular articulated what a large number of middle American citizens are thinking. And what was Iger's response? It seemed a bit schizophrenic, to be honest. Iger was clearly taken aback by this question and other questions about political content in Disney shows, about the Reedy Creek issue with Florida. Iger was on the ropes because this is not how these things are supposed to go. To actually use the term groomer to Iger's face. This is a bad day for Iger and for Disney. There's no two ways about it. On the one hand, Iger did make a common sense concession that seems to indicate a new official policy for Disney, although how it would be implemented was not addressed. But he did say that, quote, "We've recently gotten criticism for what some perceive to be agenda-driven content. And I'm sensitive to that, actually. Our primary mission needs to be to entertain, and then through our entertainment to continue to have a positive impact on the world. I'm very serious about that. It should not be agenda-driven. It should be entertainment-driven. That should be the goal in all of our stories. We should be sensitive to the fact that parents have different levels of comfort with the content that is delivered to their children. I want parents to be able to trust the content that we're creating for their children, and we're committed to delivering age-appropriate content for family audiences while also telling stories that reflect the world around us and that foster greater understanding, greater perspective, greater acceptance of all people." Unquote.
Well, that pretty much seems to be what people are asking for, doesn't it?
To some extent, yes, Harvey. Parents want age-appropriate content, but that's not really saying anything because it seems that Disney considers LGBTQ plus content to be age-appropriate. I mean, Iger's support of age-appropriate content does seem to be a step in the right direction, and yet, later in the call, Iger went on to compare Disney's inclusion of controversial political content in their programs as like unto the civil rights struggle of the 60s, which deeply offended those who don't believe there's any real comparison between the struggle of Black Americans to be afforded basic equal rights under the law and the right of LGBTQIA plus activists to have a crack at programming kids to see the world through rainbow-colored glasses. Some call it grooming, some indoctrination, some simply inappropriate. But regardless of how you label this, the simple, indisputable fact is a large segment of the Disney audience does not care for this material. And to insist on ramming it down the throats of kids, and by extension their parents, is hostile to Disney's audience, which negatively impacts Disney profits as that offended audience turns away from Disney, which in turn impacts the bottom lines of investors like those who dared to ask Iger these questions point blank. This is a shareholder's call. And if there are any Disney policies that are hurting stock prices, investors have the absolute right to complain about them, which is what these folks were doing. So on one hand, Iger defended what seems to be pretty indefensible from a business perspective, willfully and needlessly alienating a sizable chunk of your audience, stating that Disney will continue to speak out about political issues that the company feels strongly about. But on the other hand, Iger then clarified another seemingly somewhat contradictory position. Quote, "We should be sensitive to the fact that parents have different levels of comfort with the content that is created for their children. I want parents to be able to trust the content that we're creating for their children, and we're committed to delivering age-appropriate content for family audiences," unquote. The presumption here is staggering. On the one hand, Iger says parents need to be able to have faith that Disney will present their kids only age-appropriate content, all well and good, but also states that Disney as a company has the right of free speech and will continue to insert messaging into programs that lines up with Disney's values. It's flat out saying that Disney's values are more important than parental values, and that Disney will not change course. Disney's right of free speech is more important than a parent's right to control what political ideas their kids are exposed to, and that level of arrogance is why families are abandoning Disney, Disney Plus subs are dropping, and the approval rating of the Disney brand has plummeted. That's why disapproval of Disney has gotten so bad. Questions like these are now on stockholders' minds and are penetrating stockholder calls because they realize Disney's political activism is impacting their investment in Disney and hurting their bottom line. This is a terrible place for a company to be, and Iger's answers did nothing to help.
But what of the fraud accusations that are flying around? As I understand it, the issue centers around Reedy Creek and the issuance of bonds. It sounds rather dry and boring, but during the call, Iger seemingly conflated the Reedy Creek District, a governing entity, with the Walt Disney Company, a corporation. If Reedy Creek and Disney were indivisible all along, if those bonds issued primarily benefited Disney and not the citizens of Reedy Creek, it apparently opens up a very nasty can of worms. Did Iger confess to a corporate crime on the air or implicate Disney in some way?
I'm not a lawyer, gentlemen, and I cannot address that issue. However, according to the YouTuber Legal Mindset, if Iger conflated Disney and Reedy Creek in his response, he has raised some thorny questions and opened up Disney to possible increased legal scrutiny, if not action. According to Legal Mindset, if they've levied these bonds as a government entity, but were in fact a corporate entity, that violates the guarantee that Reedy Creek was a public entity, and thus that could violate the law. Bonds are normally from big companies that are lending millions of dollars based on promises regarding the entity receiving those bonds and a promise of repayment. And if it turns out that this entity was not public, but was Disney all along, those bonds could be invalidated. The state of Florida could challenge those bonds.
Wokeness and grooming and fraud, oh my! Yesterday was Disney's no good, totally rotten, horrible day. And it looks like there's more shit gonna be hitting the fan soon. All because of a shareholder call that should have been standard operating procedure, but flew off the rails.
Indeed, Harvey Cthulhu. Disney has had a lot of troubles over the past year or so, but to quote Yoda, "No, matters are worse." What will be the fallout from all of this? We'll stay on it, my friends. Watch this space, and in the meantime, stay angry. Ha 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 ha.